Hi, I'm Tony. I'm an author, presenter at Sky Sports, and years ago I went to the jungle and got ill. Very ill. So this is my podcast adventure to find more energy. It's packed with biohacking, science, health tech, supplements, and some of the most well-known experts on the planet.
This is something I spent 4 months of my life doing with electrodes glued to my head so that you can do a lifetime worth of meditation.
Decide what you don't give a fuck about, which is something you don't care about.
Some of it gets quite out there.
I had some stem cells sent up to my house that I had stored, and then I injected myself with mannitol.
And we even hack hangovers.
Alcohol is poisonous. So is water and oxygen in the wrong dosage.
So that's my podcast, Zestology. Live life with energy, vitality, and motivation. And today, asking an important question. Is your home making you sick? Is the air quality in your home not as good as it could be? I'm Tony Wrighton. As always, this podcast looks into areas where you can boost your health and vitality and energy. And it's really interesting because air quality, especially in winter when we've got all the windows shut, can be a serious problem for a lot of people. It's not just asthma and allergies, but polluted indoor air can cause headaches, dizziness, depression, respiratory infections, throat and ear infections, colds and flu as well. Mold is a massive issue, and air quality is something that we don't think about enough. The World Health Organization has listed air quality as the single biggest environmental threat to public health. The air we breathe is directly linked to our health. And if you live on a busy road with a lot of traffic, this is especially important. Obviously, traffic and exhaust fumes are especially bad for you. I'm a bit of a canary in a coal mine. The moment there is a bad whiff around the place or I'm walking on a busy road, I don't feel well. I notice smells more than other people, which is part of the reason I wanted to do this podcast. Especially in winter, 90% or more of our time is spent indoors. And sadly, I'm indoors at the moment. I like to record this podcast out and about, but when the weather is really bad, the recording equipment doesn't like getting wet, so it's got to be indoors. And the air we breathe indoors is often even worse. So I use an air angel, mostly in my bedroom at night, and I've really noticed a difference with it. And so I'm speaking today to David Milburn. He is an air expert at Air Angel. He's my guest today. He is an expert on all things to do with what we breathe. And I have to say, the technology around the Air Angel and the HypoAir is incredible. They've developed it with NASA, or the technology was originally developed by NASA, rather, and the research shows that it kills 99% of allergens, odours, germs and viruses, including, incredibly, COVID-19. So we'll talk a little bit more about this in the podcast. Here he is, David Milburn on Zestology. Why should we worry about air quality? Because it's not something I've really looked into on my podcast so far.
Well, most of the time we don't want anyone to worry about air quality, but we do think it's something that is overlooked. And especially if someone is trying to, optimize their life, reduce exposure to toxins, increase energy. It's something that's easy to not think about because in many cases we can't smell, see, experience how the things in our air are affecting us. So not that we want you to worry, but it is something to take seriously.
Yeah, it's interesting. I first really started thinking about air quality a couple of years ago when we were expecting our child and we were about 6 months pregnant. We were looking to buy a new place and we didn't have quite enough money to move to the area that we wanted to move to. But there was one house that was really great, apart from the fact it was on a very, very busy road. And, we thought about it so much and we looked into air purifiers at that point. But I just thought, you know what? However good the air purifier is, it'd just be so difficult not to open the windows without worrying about the air quality coming in. And since then, there's been this very sad case in London of a young girl who actually on her death certificate had the air quality from the road where she lived. So it really is, it's an issue that is growing in awareness, isn't it? We take it for granted that the air is good, but it's not.
Right. Right. Yeah. And sometimes the outside air is better and sometimes it's worse. And sometimes it depends on the hour of the day and which season of the year it is. So it is a very dynamic thing. But as many of us this year have been homebound more due to, COVID lockdowns, you do have more control of your space in a way. But we're also realizing that the indoor air is much worse in many cases than the outdoor air. And we tend to seal up our homes so tightly that if you introduce something that has a source of contaminant, now you're trapping that contaminant in your air and you're absorbing that into your body just through your normal breathing.
So what might those contaminants be? Because obviously you and I live in very different climates. You're in Southern California at the moment,
Sure.
but I'm guessing for you it might be aircon and for us it might be heaters or something like that.
I mean, there's so many sources that, with air quality, we break it up into a few categories. Here in Southern California, one thing that might be an extreme example is a wildfire. We've had a lot of those this year.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And,
yeah.
When you have something that's burning, you've got particulate pollution. So these are kind of like physical pieces of something.
Yeah.
And we're most concerned with the smallest size. So you might hear the term PM 2.5. That's referring to the diameter of the particulate. So 2.5 microns and smaller. Those are going to pass right through a lot of filters, a lot of your natural human defenses. You're going to travel deep into your lungs. And so the particulates from wildfire can go right through your HVAC and right into your lungs and cause lots of respiratory, irritation and other types of complications. And then with the wildfire, you also are producing chemicals. So these would be chemical compounds of various kinds that are, odors, things that have been burnt. And those chemicals, especially in higher concentrations, can, be a problem. And in your normal circumstances, something like a paint or off-gassing can also produce these chemicals. Sometimes you would call them VOCs, volatile organic compounds. There's lots of sources of this off-gassing. And then in a lot of homes where we are, a lot of coastal places, and a lot of homes in general, you're going to deal with things like mold, where, a damp, dark AC system is a perfect spot for mold to grow in abundance. And mold is going to be producing spores, which are also physical particulates. It's going to be producing toxins, mycotoxins. And so there's a lot of elements to that are a problem. Obviously, this year, kind of the globe has had a crash course in the spread of viruses, both through the air and surfaces, with things like bacteria. So there's a lot of elements to air quality. And, something like my oldest son, he deals with seasonal pollen allergies. So that's just a totally natural thing. You get a high concentration of pollen. Now his body gets a little bit overwhelmed and, he has respiratory issues. So there's lots of elements to air quality. And a lot of times it has to deal with the concentrations of the given contaminant as well as the sensitivities of the person. And something we often see is if that person's body becomes overwhelmed by, constant exposure to that, they may not be able to recover and naturally detoxify. So we want to create a safe space at home, not a place that's constantly inundating you with, high concentrations of the same types of contaminants.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's interesting, actually, that the Germans have this whole concept, which is all around opening windows. And it's kind of like a cultural thing that every 20 minutes you open the window and you let the air in. And in fact, in ancient Chinese, I've been looking into it a little bit recently, in ancient Chinese medicine, they say the qi gets stale if you don't open a window and the air isn't fresh. So this is obviously something that's been around for a long time. But then, of course, the problem is if you do live near a busy road, as most of us do, you might not be opening the window to much better air quality.
Yeah.
You mentioned,
and it could amount to the time of day as well. I mean, at least here, the peak rush hour contaminant levels from roads is through the roof, multiples worse than an hour before that time.
Wow.
So there's such a variance even during a single day, as well as a lot of times if you look at air quality, like monitors or sensors outside, a lot of times those are using a single point of data, like a weather station for a city. That's not really as helpful as knowing what the air quality is near your block at that time. Yeah. Because there's so much, variability.
Well, I've had many happy holidays in Southern California, but I have to say it's very hard to get around unless you drive anywhere, isn't it?
Sure. Unless you want to walk.
You're not big on public transport there.
No, yeah, we're pretty spread out here.
Yeah. So you mentioned seasonal allergies, and obviously I know that I have kind of two websites and two different kind of projects going on. I've got this, but I've also got the Histamine Intolerance website, which gets a lot of kind of very committed people visiting, and the Instagram account and everything else. And I'm pretty sure that I've sent a lot of customers your way, actually, David, because they've been so fascinated by my experience with the devices that you make. Because I have these kind of seasonal allergies, except they come all year round, and it's very much affected by things like diet, but also dust. And I have found when I, switch on one of your air purifiers overnight, in fact, the very first night that I left it on overnight, it felt like being asleep in a kind of a cool forest with a fresh breeze. I just slept so much. My nose was so much clearer, and I felt like I was breathing so much deeper and clearer. I'm really not making it up. It is fantastic at night, and I love having it on at night. I've also found that we've got a kind of shed which has been, in these strange coronavirus times, has been co-opted into an office. And I mean, I suppose it is a posh shed, really. It's more, but I still suspect that sometimes when I work in there, I don't feel very well afterwards, and I wonder whether there's a little bit of mold in the roof, or maybe the radiator's a bit old in there, or something like that. So I've been taking it in there as well, and that's been great too. So let's kind of drill into it a bit. What is the product that I've been using? It's the Air Angel, isn't it? And it's very small and unassuming, but it's very, very good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an upgraded version of a product we've had for a little while, and that features two of our proprietary technologies. And one of the things that we believe with air quality is that there's no silver bullet, so you need different tools for different problems. And a unit like that is very versatile, and it can cover up to about 300 square feet of cars, rooms, lots of situations like that. But, we like to tackle things on an individual basis. Sometimes you need physical filters, sometimes you don't. In your case, you're able to achieve the results, your health goals that you need with almost no maintenance. And with a unit that you can move between, your posh shed and your home, and so that's like an ideal fit for you. And we have different units of different sizes, as well as incorporate various types of technologies to attack different situations. And with our company, we work with customers all over the world, homes to the tallest building in the world in Dubai. We work with hospitals, sewage plants, you name it. And there's a lot of different ways to tackle air quality. And too often our industry has oversimplified it to, okay, here's just one unit that's perfect for every situation. And that's just not the case. So due to the complexity, you need different tools, to address that. And, with something like mold, the unit you have is ideal for that, because you're going to be killing the mold on a surface. You're going to be ripping apart the chemicals. So you're breaking them down on a chemical level, and you're dealing with the particulates as well. So that's perfect for that kind of situation. Same with something like an airborne allergen, like an aero allergen. We want to get those grouped together, and we want to get them out of your air, so you're not breathing them in and being triggered by them. So.
Yeah, it's brilliant. So I mean, I can do a bit of the German window opening and a bit of that as well, and it kind of works quite well. And on the window opening, I really like a breezometer. Sometimes I'm not sure the proper pronunciation, but breezometer. And they use satellite data to estimate the dynamic air quality at your exact location, including things like traffic. Just like your phone would know how much traffic is on the freeway. Heat. So they're layering on all this data to estimate what the air quality is like at that given point outside of your home, and using more and more tools. There's lots of physical products that the sensors are advancing dramatically, where you could actually have an outdoor sensor on your home to have a good idea what's going on outside at that time, to be like, make an informed decision. This might be a great time to open the window, get some nice breeze from outside. Ventilation is, in many cases, perfect for your indoor air quality. It's just having
an awareness of, okay, it's rush hour right now. Maybe I should wait an hour. Or there's wildfire outside. Obviously not a good time. So just having some more understanding there is going to help you make good decisions.
Yeah. It's the German tradition called Luften, and it is a national obsession with room ventilation. And they do it in schools as well. And I mean, it is like literally a thing. Every 20 minutes, someone will just open a window, get the nasty niffs out and get the fresh air in. And apparently German rental agreements specify that a home should be aired twice a day. So if you're going to sign a rental agreement, you've got to promise to do that. So I mean, it probably is quite a good idea. Interrupting this podcast for one moment to tell you about my new favourite biohack. You might have heard my podcast recently about essential oils. Now, check this out, because it is an all-natural, non-electronic wooden essential oil inhaler. I just used it before recording this. It's a natural inhaler that helps you inhale essential oils. Very pure, very simple, and it's incredible how much energy it gives you. Definitely gives you a little energy boost, like a kind of half cup of coffee when you do it. It helps you with increased performance, overall wellness. It definitely taps into natural wisdom. And there's all sorts of cores that you can get. You can get standard cores, which are individual flavours like peppermint, eucalyptus, lavender, great for improving mood and relaxation, sleep and brain function. And one of the things which is really interesting is they're looking into it to help giving up smoking as well. They've had some great results with black pepper, which is a natural craving reducer for nicotine. And there's some interesting research on their site around black pepper and their Conquer premium core as well. So a lot of different flavors you can get involved with. A lot of it is about energy, so it ties in perfectly with this podcast as well. And you can use the code Zestology for 10% off store-wide. So with a fume inhaler or the fume cores that you get as well, it's a really nice sensation. If you're someone who likes putting essential oils on in your house, you get a much kind of quicker hit from it, and you get much more essential oils by using the Fume Essential inhaler as well. So use the code Zestology, head to fumeessential.com, and that is spelled FUM essential.com. Remember to use that Zestology discount, and if you do, let me know how you get on. As I've already been saying on the podcast, I think my favourite is probably peppermint still, just because I'm all about energy, and I'm definitely getting a little energy boost when I use that. I'm getting more focus as well. But lavender is right up there with my second favourite. And one of the things that I really like about Fume Essential is if you're someone who likes to get a little bit creative, you can create your own blend as well. So you might think, oh, do you know what, today I just want a little bit of clove, a little bit of peppermint, a little bit of cinnamon, maybe some citrus in there. You can just get creative. FumeEssential.com. Use the code Zestology for 10% off. It's a brilliant biohack. It's completely natural, which is so important to me. And I think it taps into the ancient wisdom of using essential oils in a really fantastic, effective way. Back to the show. I won't make this too much of an advertorial, but I know that you guys have done some testing on coronavirus as well, which is absolutely astonishing. And I think this is one of the things that I told my mum when we were going to visit her, back when we were allowed to, that I had a device that could actually kill coronavirus on the surfaces. And she couldn't believe it. She was all over it. So tell us about the research that you've done with that, and because I think a lot of people will be very interested in that.
Yeah, so we've been around for a while, and our technologies are germicidal in nature. So we have well over a decade of research on things like MRSA, VRE, hospital-acquired infections. A lot of those are bacteria. And then maybe 3-4 years ago, our medical distributor in South Korea insisted on MERS coronavirus testing. So it's the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome version of the coronavirus, extremely deadly. And so we jumped through a lot of hoops to get MERS coronavirus testing on our APCO technology to show that it could kill it on a surface outside of the air purifier. So obviously it's killing anything in the air between the air purifier and the surface as well, but specifically on killing it on a surface. And that was done 3-4 years ago. And with our unit, you're able to achieve upwards of 99.9998%, I think, was in that lab study on a surface of coronavirus kills. And so when we came into 2020, we were monitoring the situation back in January. We actually notified our customers of it back in January, and we were kind of tracking it because we're obviously involved with all this, and it became a very challenging time for our company to assist kind of worldwide with that, because there's many technologies out there that simply are not germicidal for air purification at all. They make no claims, no attempts, and very few would even claim to kill something like a virus on a surface, let alone have lab studies on it, and let alone allow people to be safely in the same room as the technology that's doing that. So those are all really big steps. And then kind of throughout this year, we were able to achieve testing on the SARS-CoV-2, so the COVID-19 strain of the coronavirus as well. And we used a different one of our technologies, the polar ionization technology, and we were able to kill that on a surface as well. I think 94% in the first hour of exposure on a surface with our most minimalistic residential unit. And the reason why we did that is because a unit like yours has both technologies. So now you have two different technologies that are completely, they have completely fundamentally different mode of action with how it's interacting with the virus, and they're both proven to kill a coronavirus on a surface.
Wow.
And so so when possible, redundancies in air quality are going to be beneficial. And so in this case, now you've got two different technologies that are able to be germicidal with something like a coronavirus, including this specific coronavirus.
Have you had a lot of interest from people specifically because of that since you announced the results of that study?
We actually announced the results very subtly.
Yeah.
And it took us about 6 months to get the SARS-CoV-2 testing done, because there's only 3 labs, at least at the time we started. There's only 3 labs in the U.S. approved by the CDC to do SARS-CoV-2 disinfectant testing, and so they were obviously quite backlogged, and it took them a while to do the testing. We were extremely overwhelmed in the beginning part of this year as people realized that our units had germicidal UV, also recommended for coronavirus. We had coronavirus testing. And so, we were subject to, federal acquisition orders. We've worked with, personally working with hospitals in Brooklyn, New York during kind of the peak of some of the, March, April time of this year. And, we've worked with people all over the world trying to assist them. And our hope is to provide, we worked with a lot of medical facilities, a lot of schools that are reopening, a lot of people that are trying to take proactive steps and not use this as as their only step, but as a tool to provide ongoing mitigation, as well as trying to do everything else, especially with a novel virus. But our hope is that those people are going to continue to see both protection now, as well as ongoing benefits from improved air quality into the future. And so we've certainly had some people out of real concern, worry, panic even, purchasing our units this year, and our hope is that they will kind of like you've experienced. They might sleep better. That's not something we're claiming, but if you remove those allergens from your house, obviously your body is being inundated with less triggering toxins, and so now you're able to achieve more benefits going forward. And we think that even if God willing, the coronavirus goes away today, that the benefits from air quality will be ongoing.
Yeah, I mean, that must be, from your point of view, it must be so nice to think that you're working at this company that all of a sudden is able to make a difference in this kind of, I mean, you're genuinely making a difference, aren't you? Is it like it's something that positive that people can do, and it means the company flourishes.
Sure.
How nice for you to be able to work with hospitals and things like that.
Sure. It was, especially in those early months, it was probably the most stressful time of my career, but certainly rewarding in that sense to be able to help, and to have something that could help now. And it's definitely been a challenge to increase production, deal with the many unusual circumstances of 2020. But we're happy to be able to play that role because, for years, we have medical presentations on the spread of coronavirus, on the original SARS, that no one cared about. I mean, it was just kind of a side benefit. Oh, your technology also kills, something like MERS coronavirus. That's nice. But now it became a lot more relevant, certainly.
Yeah. I think that and a good Hoover gets a lot of dust up as well. I invested. I think the old Hoover we had cost about £20. the cheapest one I could find on Amazon, and I didn't realize that was probably something that I wanted to pay a bit more attention to.
Sure. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I actually did a post on hoovering and histamine intolerance, and it had such a massive reaction.
Oh wow, yeah.
But I mean, this is the thing about histamine intolerance and seasonal allergies, and a lot of people suffer from this in a kind of a minor way. That if you have an allergic reaction to house dust in some way, you get this immune response. I think it's IgE antibodies. You get high levels of histamine in your body. That's just going to be taken away if you can either hoover it all up or somehow get a purifier which purifies the air. So I've been living with that for a long time, and I now enjoy doing the housework very much to hoover it up and then put the purifier on.
Well, one of the things that we look, or I guess one of the principles we apply to this whole conversation is what is taking place outside to mitigate these type of contaminants, and how can we replicate that indoors? Because if you have no mitigation tools, including something like opening the windows, you're just trapping everything in there. So all the dust, all the mold, everything, you're just trapping it in there. Yeah. Outside, there's lots of processes that take place, and we're trying to replicate those. And so just having a kind of a whole system in your home to be purifying the environment, because we as people are one of the main sources of contaminants and everything we're bringing into the house. Well, you also need to implement tools to bring that into a natural, healthy balance.
Yeah. You mentioned off-gassing. When we had our son, that was one of the things that I tried to get kind of non-toxic, non-chemical products for him, natural and organic when possible. I think I spent far too much money on an organic pram, but that meant that because most of the products are made with materials that are quite toxic actually, and if they're new then they're off-gassing as well. You might get this with a new sofa or a new car as well. Could you briefly explain about VOCs and why they're an issue? Because I'm not in the market for a new car, but if I was, I would definitely be putting the Air Angel in the car whenever I sat in there.
Well, one of the things we always recommend to our customers is reducing the sources of contaminants, because if you can reduce your exposure to begin with, that's a great first step. And one of those is being conscious of what you're bringing into the house, because, we work with hotels, just as an example, all over the world, some really nice ones. Yeah. And we've done studies with very expensive VOC monitoring equipment in the hotels, and the highest VOCs that we could find is after cleaning the rooms. So the cleaning chemicals used to wipe down the counters and everything would spike the VOCs by multiples. And so just, being conscious of, okay, what are these things that you're putting into the air? How could they be affecting your bodies? And in some cases, our bodies are going to be naturally resistant. We're going to detoxify. It's not going to be a big deal. But something like Febreze is layering on odors, chemicals to mask other odors. And same with something like a carpet or paint. There's going to be chemicals that are coming off of those, off-gassing, and they could off-gas for a very long time. And so being conscious of what types of products you're bringing in, as well as having something like a mitigation tool like ours to reduce any VOCs that do come off of them, is a really important part of air quality. Obviously, some chemicals can be much more dangerous or irritating than others. Some you may never smell or experience at all. That's one of our challenges as a company, because so much of what we're reducing, you may never be able to see or know that was ever there. And so we want to deal with both the hidden and the more apparent threats and odors. And something like a VOC can be very irritating to one person in your household, and everyone else doesn't mind it at all. But that one person, every time they go in that room, it's triggering for them. And so there's a lot of kind of personal experience with how something like a VOC can affect you.
That's me.
Yep.
I'm the one who gets triggered more than anyone else. In fact, at my at work recently, I was in the TV studio, and we're getting free tests at work now. And so it's quite nice. Whenever we go in, we get a free coronavirus test. And somebody had tested positive, so they kind of closed the studio and they did a deep clean. And then we went back in and started broadcasting. And I think my boss thinks I'm a bit of a wuss because everybody
Sure.
else was absolutely fine and I could barely
Yes.
breathe. I mean, I don't know what they were cleaning. It must have been ammonia or something, but I just felt so ill. And I actually felt ill for days afterwards.
Yeah.
But really, and it's these are enclosed studios, no windows. There's probably some aircon and stuff like that. But, I mean, it was a very strong smell.
Right.
And I kicked up a bit more of a fuss than everybody else about it. But there you go.
It can be very frustrating for people in your position because, especially if you have no understanding of why you're feeling the way you are,
Yeah.
you just kind of feel, isolated. We have people that they've got, 4, 5, 6 roommates in their, suite, and they're the only one that has an issue. Yeah. Every time they go into that one bathroom or whatever it is, they're the one that's so reactive.
The good thing is that it's definitely using some of the mitigation tools I've put on the website, the histamine-intolerance.net. I am actually much more tolerant than I used to be now. So I can, at first, for example, I wasn't eating any fish at all, and really kind of careful about the products that I used and the food that I ate, and taking loads of supplements. And once that kind of histamine bucket, as they call it, starts to empty, then you're not quite so affected by the air quality, which is actually a great relief as well.
Right. But, and as you mentioned, the sleep, like having a safe place to sleep and recover and build that natural resilience, that's what we want. We don't want everyone to feel like they have to live in a bubble, protected by everything, but we do want you to have safe spaces to recover. Make sure you're not overwhelming your body with toxins. And then when you are exposed at work or, you're going to a store or something, now you've got the resilience there to fight that.
Yeah. Well, look, David, you guys are doing a brilliant job. 2 questions that I ask everybody. What is one book that you would recommend and one tip for living with more energy and vitality?
So I think I'm going to give a 2020 appropriate version answer to this question.
Although this will be going out in 2021. We were recording this on the second last day of 2020.
Okay, yes, that's true. That's true. Well, I think still appropriate. Yeah. I think my tip is no devices in bed.
Oh,
so you can get to sleep well. And I see that with so many people that they're stimulating themselves with devices at that time, and so getting good sleep, getting to bed at a good time is, I think, one of the top things that we see that you can do. And that's just purely, a lot of times it's just habits. It's just how you get down. And the other one, and this is I think a silly answer to the book I'd recommend, but there's so much seriousness right now that my wife and I have enjoyed so much listening to like nonfiction adventures. Right now we're doing a book series called Wheel of Time. It's very famous.
Oh yeah.
And it is just so refreshing to have something that's not that heavy right now.
Yeah.
Because we're dealing with a lot of, both her and I, in our fields, we deal with a lot of heavy content right now.
Yeah.
And so something that's sparking your imagination, your creativity, just listening to, adventure, I think that's very appropriate for these times. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because the temptation is to spend more time, especially if you're taking your phone to bed, which you shouldn't be, as per your first tip, but to spend more time on the news in the first place, isn't it? And actually, we just need to, our nervous systems need to decompress a bit, don't they?
I have tried to implement a no news at night or weekends rule for myself.
How's that going?
It's for the most part, it's gone incredibly well.
Great. Well done. That's brilliant. Yeah. And I have to say, it's taken me a long time to get to a stage where I leave the phone out of the bedroom. But now it's such a relief getting rid of it in the evening. I mean, it's like it actually. There's been a couple of times recently when it's just I don't know if I've got back late or I need the alarm or something like that.
Sure.
But it's I don't like having it here now, and I'm really pleased. It's taken a long time to make that change, but it is important.
Yeah. It's funny, once you get some space from those things that you think that you really want and need, sometimes when you come back to them, you realize you don't actually have a taste for them.
Yeah, definitely. Well, look, David, you guys are doing brilliant work. I am an absolute convert to the Air Angel. I think it's brilliant. Where would people find out more about everything that you do?
Yeah, hypoair.com is the main one. So hypoair.com. And what we always recommend is just reach out to us. We have a lot of information on our site. You can see some of these studies. You can read through a lot of that information. But reach out to us. A lot of your situations are very individual, and we want to help answer those questions, recommend specific solutions for those situations. Because we have units that are going to cover a very small room or small car, and we have units that will cover an entire house or building.
Yeah. And if you do that alongside a bit of luften, opening the window, you'll be perfect. Thank you to David, and that 10% discount link is on my website, TonyWrighton.com. You'll find it in the blog section. It is also in the show notes of this podcast on the website and whatever player you are listening to as well. So I have a feeling that discount link is going to get used a few times. It is really impressive, this Air Angel, and as I said in the podcast, I've been very much enjoying using it at night, and I do feel like I just breathe a bit clearer. And it's a really nice sensation. Now, talking of clean air and breathing in nice smells, today's podcast sponsor is definitely my favourite biohack at the moment. You might have heard my podcast about essential oils recently, and you've got to check this out. An all-natural, non-electronic wooden essential oil inhaler, Fume, is brilliant for all sorts of things. Increased performance, definitely gives you more energy, and overall wellness as well. It's basically a small little device, and you breathe it in and you are just breathing one thing. That's essential oils. It's so pure. It's very energizing. It's a natural inhaler. It's made sustainably in Canada, and they have all these what they call cores based on different flavors. So you can have peppermint, eucalyptus, lavender, black pepper. They're also really big on smoking cessation as well, giving up smoking, which is really interesting, with various flavors, including black pepper. And you can even create your own blends as well. It's a brilliant idea. And if you want to get involved, you can use the code Zestology for 10% off store-wide. So head to fumeessential.com and use the code Zestology for 10% off store-wide. And that's not the merchandise, but everything else you want. So all the different kind of inhalers and all the different cores that you've got. As I've said already, my favorite is definitely peppermint, but I'm kind of getting into some of the other ones as well. And then they've got some blended cores as well. And I really like the Shield blend, which is an immunity booster, which is particularly good at this time of year. And we've spoken a lot about immunity over the last couple of months on Zestology, but it's got peppermint and eucalyptus and clove and citrus. So Shield, good for immunity, and that is a fun one in terms of the premium cores that they've got. Head to Fume Essential, so that's FUMessential.com, and use the code Zestology, and let me know how you get on as well. I'd really love to know, because it's definitely my favourite new biohack at the moment, and I'd love to know what success you've had with that. FUMessential.com and use the code Zestology. Right, that is it. Thanks for listening to Zestology. It's really been about what we breathe today, and obviously I will be doing a bit of luften later on and opening the window, even though it's cold outside. But that, along with a bit of Fume Essential and a bit of getting outside and an air purifier at night, you can't go far wrong, can you? Thanks for listening to Zestology, and I'll see you next time.